So, welcome everybody. And the first thing I'd like to say is that for the first time in 18 months, we've got our full complement of independent members. So I'd like to welcome Judith Hardesty.
Thank you.
The rest of you are already welcome, so well done. Hiya, Julie.
You may not be able to.
Just saying, it's nice to see that Julie, our previous workforce director and deputy chief exec, is online. I'd like to welcome Ian Matheson, our new director of education strategy and transformation. Angie, where are you, Angie?
Yeah.
Angie Oliver is here as the interim director of workforce and organisation development. And Anton, where are you, Anton? Anton is here representing Tom Lawson, and of course Anton is our postgraduate medical dean. The apologies for absence, of course, are from Tom Lawson, our medical director. So, are there any declarations of interest that are specific to today's agenda that have not been declared in our formal declarations of interest?
None received.
None received. I'm now going to go then into the draft minutes of the board meeting held on the 30th of May. So are you good to go for this then? So first of all, for accuracy, page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's only 11. Just testing. Are you happy for me to sign these accounts off? Sign these minutes off? Freudian slip there. Yeah. Can we go to the action log? David, any comments?
So just to confirm, with regards to the data breaches, we'll be sharing that with the board tomorrow.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they've been actioned and we'll take them by
Okay. And now I'm going back to the minutes. And this is for any matters arising that you wish to raise from the minutes. Page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. All happy?
Yeah.
You're welcome. Now, the main purpose of today's meeting is to consider our annual, number one, our annual accountability report. David.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Cadeirydd. Felly, da ni'n gofyn i'r bwrdd os gwelwch yn dda i gymeradwyo'r adroddiad atebolrwydd sy'n rhan o'r adroddiad blynyddol. Mae tri prif rhan i'r adroddiad, sef y datganiad llywodraethu blynyddol, yr adroddiad talu o staff, ac yr adroddiad atebolrwydd seneddol a archwilio. Mae'n braf gallu adrodd fod yr adroddiad atebolrwydd wedi cael ei ystyried gan y Pwyllgor Archwilio wythnos diwethaf, a bod y Pwyllgor wedi argymell fod bwrdd cymeradwyo'r adroddiad atebolrwydd. Felly, da ni'n gofyn i'r bwrdd heddiw os gwelwch yn dda i dderbyn ac i gymeradwyo'r adroddiad atebolrwydd ar gyfer 2023-2024 i'w gyflwyno i Llywodraeth Cymru 3/4.
Wow. Right. As chair of the audit committee, do you want to make any comment, Jane?
Just to confirm, as David said, Chair, that the audit committee has considered this and scrutinised it fully, and we recommend to the board that it be taken forward.
Yeah. So, can I ask if there are any questions or comments people wish to make? In that case, then, I'm asking the board to receive and approve the Accountability Report 2023-24 for submission to Welsh Government.
Yep.
Diolch yn fawr pawb. 2.2, our Performance Report 2023-24. David.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Cadeirydd. Felly, y papur unwaith eto ydy hwn yn gofyn am cymeradwyaeth y bwrdd. Mae'r adroddiad perfformiad hefyd yn rhan o'n adroddiad blynyddol ni. Mae'r adroddiad perfformiad yn darparu diweddariad o berfformiad AaGIC ar gyfer y llynedd ar gyfer 2023-2024. Mae'n cynnwys manylion drwy gynnau ynglŷn â'r cynnydd amweithdwyd o ran cyflawni ein nodau strategol ynghyd â pherfformiad y corff. Mae'n braf eto i gallu gadarnhau, ystyriwyd a cefnogwyd yr adroddiad perfformiad yn y cyfarfod o'r Pwyllgor Archwilio yn wythnos diwethaf. Felly, byddai'n gofyn os gwelwch yn dda i'r bwrdd i ystyried yr adroddiad perfformiad ac i gymeradwyo bod yr adroddiad i gael ei gyflwyno i'r Llywodraeth Cymru bydd y 15 o Fethefnos. Diolch Cadeirydd.
Diolch, David. Okay.
And again, Chair, I'll confirm what David has said, which is that the Audit and Assurance Committee has scrutinised this report, has taken assurance from it, and recommends to the board that it goes forward to us.
Thank you. I open it up to the board members now. Are there any questions or comments you wish to make? Thank you very much. So we've considered the performance report, and I'm asking you to approve the performance report for submission to Welsh Government by July the 15th.
Yep, yep.
Diolch yn fawr. Diolch, David. Now, 2.3, final accounts. Is that you, Glyn, as the finance director?
I believe it is.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased actually to be able to present the accounts to the board today for the 2023-24 financial year. Just to highlight some key points in the accounts. So we have two statutory financial targets. One is to operate within our revenue resource limit, and you'll see that we're reporting surplus there of 1.267 million for last year. The second one then is to operate within our capital resource limit, and again you'll see that we're reporting in the accounts that we achieved that with a small surplus of £7,000. We also have a separate financial target around paying our invoices on a timely basis. It's called the Public Sector Payment Policy, or DSPP, and we're required to pay at least 95% of our non-NHS suppliers within 30 days. And again, you'll see that we slightly exceeded that target with 95.7%. In terms of producing the accounts, we take a draft set of accounts to the Audit and Assurance Committee. That was in May. We then had the audit that's undertaken by Audit Wales, and then the final set of accounts then came to the Audit and Assurance Committee last week for them to scrutinise. There was one correction that we made in the draft set of accounts. So the difference between the draft and the final set, which is set out in the auditor's report, but essentially it was an adjustment around the way that we'd accounted for spend relating to the spring cohort of students, which effectively reduced our surplus by about £100,000. As I say, it's set out in the paper, and it's also set out in Audit Wales's audit report as well. When we presented the accounts to the Audit and Assurance Committee last week, there was one outstanding issue that wasn't in the accounts at that time, and that related to the pay offer to doctors, which was still outstanding. Since So it had been agreed when we actually met with the Audit and Assurance Committee, but when we actually circulated the papers, we were still waiting for the doctor unions to vote on that pay offer. Subsequently, that pay offer was agreed, and because it potentially could impact on last year's accounts, we've agreed that we will put a note into the accounts, which is it's actually on page 60 if anybody wants to refer to it. But it's a fairly detailed note around the medical pay award that's been agreed. Because it's retrospective, it does potentially apply to last year's accounts. But we agreed with Audit Wales that it was sufficient just to include a note to the accounts, and that is consistent with the way it's been treated with all NHS Wales bodies and their accounts. There are some recommendations that Audit Wales have made, and again, I'll cover these in a bit more detail under 2.5 when I present the ISA 260 report. But I think it's probably important just to say that we accepted the 4 recommendations that they made. We accepted them in full, and you can see when we go through that report that there's a detailed set of actions to deliver against those recommendations. So there's nothing else that I wanted to cover at this point. So if it's okay, I'll hand back to you so that you can pass over to the chair of the Audit and Assurance Committee to make a recommendation to the board.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Glenn. The Audit and Assurance Committee benefited from having Bill Lewis with us for consideration of the accounts. Again, I would say that we scrutinised the accounts both when they came to us first in draft and then when they came back to us last week. Glenn has already explained the amendment has been made and the need for that special statement in relation to the pay offer for doctors. And a common statement has been agreed for accounts across NHS Wales. So the Audit Committee commends the finance team for the production of accounts, as did Audit Wales, and we recommend to the board that they be approved and submitted to us.
Thank you. So, colleagues, are there any questions or comments people wish to make? So, following the consideration of the annual accounts and the Audit Wales ISA 260 report, I'm asking you to approve the audited accounts and financial statements for HEIW for 23-24 financial year. May I have your approval?
Yes.
Thank you very much. You wish to say something?
Yeah, if you don't mind, you stole my thunder, the Audit Committee, so that's all right. I just wanted to thank Glenn and the team really for doing a great job in producing those accounts, but more importantly in steering us through financial year of 23-24. I think, you know, sometimes people look at this organisation and feel that our finances are such that must be quite easy, but it's challenging for lots of different reasons. And obviously the board takes really seriously the financial position, the fact that there has been some underspending, but equally some of the risks we've managed within that. So I think it's important to recognise that just because it's perhaps of a different nature doesn't mean it's any less challenging to do all of the financial management and the accounting that's necessary to keep us on the straight and narrow and demonstrate we've achieved those financial targets, but most importantly use the resources that we've got to best effect as far as we can. So just wanted to thank you for that. I know that certainly when the Chair and I speak to Audit Wales, they're really complimentary about the relationship they have with the organisation and with the team in particular. And it was a very open and transparent approach, which again, I think is really, really important. So just wanted to put on record my thanks, and I'm sure everybody else's thanks to you and the team for doing that.
Thanks. I'll pass that on to the team. It's much appreciated.
I've got agenda item 2.4, which is Audit and Assurance Committee reviews of accounts and public disclosure statements. Is there anything you wanted to add what you've already said?
I don't think so, Chair.
Okay, so I'm going to go on to 2.5, which is Audit Wales Audit of Financial Statements Report, ISA 260, and the letter of representation 2324. Is it you again, Glenn?
I'll pick that up if you like. Yeah. So this is normally Audit Wales would probably present this. This is so the ISA 260 is their report. It's their report on the audit that they undertook of the annual accounts. It presents their opinion, and obviously you'd be pleased to know that they've reported an unqualified opinion, which is good. It does also highlight anything that they find during the audit. And again, there was nothing material that they highlighted, but they did make these 4 recommendations that I mentioned earlier. One was around the way that we had accounted for some of the spring cohort of students, which we corrected in the accounts. And then there were 3 other areas around how we ideally how we corroborate evidence around funding for capital projects. And this goes back to the getting funding approval from Welsh Government for what was the single platform project or CODI. And I think, as the board may remember, we had to make some decisions quite early on last year around proceeding with procurement on that before we eventually gained Welsh Government funding approval. So in an ideal world, we would try and do that in a slightly different order. So we've got clear evidence of funding from Welsh Government for proceeding to do some of that. So it's a recommendation that I think we recognise and accept. And obviously, sort of going forward, we'll make sure that as far as possible we would sort of comply with that in the right way. Separately, was a recommendation around tagging of capital assets. We don't actually have many in HEIW, but we do have some equipment, particular equipment that we use for training that's located in other organisations. So, for instance, when we moved the endoscopy training up to Keir Centre, there were capital assets that belonged to us cited there. So again, important that we have some way of identifying those assets. So we will look at how we can do that in a proportionate way, I think, so that we can identify those assets, particularly those that are distributed elsewhere. And then the other item was just one around when they were testing some of our employment contracts, making sure that employees had the right contracts or right contract extensions, and they picked up one area where we need to sort of tighten that up. So again, we've accepted that recommendation in full. So I think those were the key areas. As I say, the opinion that they offer on the accounts was unqualified, which is good. That means they're happy that the accounts reflect a true and fair view, and we spent the money in a legal and appropriate way. So I really just want to sort of finish off by offering my thanks to Audit Wales, because having that sort of open but I think very constructive approach that we enjoy with our team is really important in getting through the audit process in a very smooth way, but also knowing that they've done a thorough job of auditing the accounts. And then finally, I'd just like to sort of thank the chair and members of the Audit and Assurance Committee for the work that they've done in particularly scrutinising the accounts. And again, I think their constructive approach to challenging us when it's appropriate to do so, really, which again, I think can just provide the wider board with that assurance that these are a good set of accounts, and everything sort of as it should be. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben. So the board's asked to note the report and to consider the ISA 260 and final letter of representation, which I think we have done. So are there any questions for Glyn? No? Very good. David, in committee decisions, 2.6.
Ie, papur i'w nodi di hon, mae o'n crynhoi penderfyniadau wnaethpwyd yn cyfarfod hydd neu yn committee nôl yn mis Mai.
That report is for noting and for information. Thank you. Before I close the meeting, there are no urgent matters, but I'd like to thank everybody for the way we behave around spending public money. It's not about how much you've got, it's what you can do with what you've got. And I think part of the thing about this is that the pennies we spend bring real value into the NHS in Wales. And certainly they bring real value into individuals and their communities. Alex, I think having pants like this makes these meetings very small, very short, but that doesn't necessarily represent the effort, the time, and the diligence and care that's taken. So I'd like to thank everybody involved. In particular, this year was a transition period for the Audit and Assurance Committee. And we have to recognise that this has long been Jill's baby, right? And it has been safely transferred and delivered into the care of Jane and the new members. It's a great place to learn about an organisation is the Audit Committee. And I can't tell you how vulnerable the organisation is if the Audit Committee isn't fit for purpose. So thank you, Jill, for building the foundations, and thank you, Jane, for taking on the chair. With that, I'd like to draw your attention to the next meeting of the board will be held on the 1st of August, following which we will have a development session in the afternoon. Yeah, there'll be a briefing session in the afternoon. So thank you, everybody. And that's the end of today's meeting. Diolch o galon.